Hello and welcome. Today I was meant to have Jim Secondé with me, but he is currently looking after his children because it's half term. Life happens. But instead, I thought I'd bring in, a replacement, Chris Miller. Hey, Chris.
Hello. How you doing?
I am caffeinated. I have API in front of me.
So am I.
I'm drinking a cold coffee. I've had way too many hot coffees this morning, so I am now on cold coffee because I needed a cold drink. So we're going to look at API Platform for the Touchline project that we are both involved in. And I have a repo. I've started it. It is a base API Platform project. I've removed the default greeting stuff, and I've done the make user to add the security stuff.
Cool.
Next, I need to figure out, where do I go from here? Chris, you've dabbled with API Platform.
Yep.
What have you done in the past?
So I literally downloaded it after you did the first video on it with the creator. 16 minutes, and I had a fully working multi-relationship API with authentication. Honestly, it's
mind-blowing,
incredible. I could not have written it in Laravel that quick.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons I want to try it, to be honest. Yeah. So my user model or user entity, we've got an ID, an email, password, and a name. Right, that I don't need, so I'll remove that. Got an array of roles, which is cool. I haven't migrated any database stuff. I haven't done anything like that. What do you think I should do next?
Well, I suppose we ought to have a look at our OpenAPI schema and check that our user looks something like we expect it to.
That'd be a good question. Okay, so let's go. I'm assuming.
Knowing Jim, he'll have put it in components at the bottom.
Yeah, it'll be somewhere towards the bottom. Team, fixture, object. Users, create user request. User object. First name, last name, country, postcode, phone, date of birth, marketing, and email. So I need all of that. So let's walk through. So let me make sure I haven't got any migrations. No, we're good. So it's a slightly different kind of workflow using like Symfony and API Platform to what it might be in Laravel. So in Laravel, you go make this with a migration, you're filling your migration, your factory, and your model. But with Doctrine, you fine-tune your entity to generate the migration from that entity, right?
Yep.
Am I correct with that one?
It certainly seems to be that way because it should generate it directly from the entity.
So I've got a make file, which allows me to kind of do things a little bit easier. So I can use the make console, make entity, which will then allow me to say, let's use a user, which is going to detect it's already there, and I can start adding fields. So first name is a string, 255, Can be null, no. Last name. So we've got first name, last name. We need country.
So country, how would we handle that as an enum so that we can stop any random string going in?
That is a good question. Symfony. Doctrine enum field.
Sounds like a reasonable thing to Google.
Yeah.
As I said on TikTok the other day to somebody, even people with 20 years of experience are Googling stuff daily, so don't worry about it.
My wife is shouting at my children. Okay. So we can do that. That's kind of not what we want, though, is it? Elephant. Okay, perfect. Create the enum. See, create the enum first. You need to create a doctrine type. Auto configure. Oh, paywall. Hit by a paywall already. ISO standards. Okay, so that sounds messy, right? Doing it that way, which is, I suppose, where Laravel really kind of using Eloquent, it just kind of takes over that. So instead, we want to look at doctrine validation rules. So that you can kind of validation on the my internet blipped. That would be the result of half term and children with tablets.
Which is always helpful.
Yeah, tell me about it. So you can do not blank using the validation service. So you can do something, blah, blah, blah. Shouldn't be blank. Validation callables. So blank, blank, not null is type string constraints. Blah, 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 blah. Comparison. We've got lots of equals, number constraints, date constraints, choice. Ha ha ha. Country. That is a country.
That'll do nicely.
So options, alpha 3, groups, message, payload. So it checks ISO standards. So let's go back to this. First name, last. We're going to remove the name. Oh, God. So email, first name, last name. I didn't add country, did I?
No, you broke out partway through.
My wife likes shouting today. I'm going to do it on this screen. So let me just quickly change the appearance to be like that. And hopefully you can see it better. And I just stick it to the top. So input is going to be classic mode. Here we go. So entity, the user user, we're going to add the country, string. Yep. Can it be null? That is the question.
No. I would say no, because you'd want it to remain consistent. This is your core. Your core entity.
So that is there. Let me just kind of stick that outside so we can kind of flick between windows nicely. So there's a country done. Postcode. postcode, string. We'll do everything as a string to start with, and we will kind of fine tune. Phone again. Date of birth. Now that's going to be an interesting one because we want that to be a string.
Yeah, because we're not collecting the year, we're only collecting the month and day.
We're going to have to do some form of validation on that one. Maybe client side, maybe somewhere we can figure that out, right? Date of birth, string. I hate making everything a string, but sometimes needed. So, marketing.
You can have a Boolean this time.
Options. We can do Boolean.
That auto-completed, was that warp or was that the CLI?
That is the Symfony CLI.
Nice.
So can it be null? No.
No.
Perfect. Email I've already captured. Cool. So that is done. So let's go have a look at this because I mean the way that it adds it works, but it always puts it in like a funny order. So like I want that towards the end. Date of birth can be there. First name, last name. I'll move the password. I like to have it in a specific order. I am picky. Right, so like that. So ID, first name, last name, email, password, country, postcode, phone, date of birth, marketing, and roles. So I believe this will give me an int ID by default. Is there a way to do UUIDs?
That's a very good question. Looks like the answer is yes.
What's this? Okay. Blah, blah, blah.
At var UUID.
But that isn't the ID, so I'm going to have to add an extra column to my entity to be able to kind of like bind that as what's being used here to the identifier, right?
Have a look at the ORM ID. There's probably an option on there. I wouldn't have thought that it would be limited.
Implement some mapping, attribute, target property, generated value, strategy auto.
UUID.
So I can pass through a strategy of UUID. Generated value. Which would make that a string, not an int. I'm going to have to add some sort of column length, right?
Interesting that it generates null as the default.
Yeah, it'll set it to null as default for. I think that's because it's not an ORM. So what it's doing is building up that object in the background with a nullable ID, and when that persists to the database, it gets the ID for that record.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So it's null at the point of creation, but when you actually try to do anything with it, validation kicks in.
Yeah. So once I've got my ORM things set up, what I want to do is kind of is there a command for once I've got an entity ready or migrate? There's probably a command, right?
There is, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, you know. Okay, so what I need to do is make a console. It'll be migrate, doctrine migrate something.
Doctrine migrations generate.
So make console
Generate
DMG.
blank.
Make console DMG.
So that's going to create a blank migration.
Will it create a blank one, or will it create Laravel find how to do things? Yeah, that's creating a blank one, which I don't want. Delete that. So instead, I want to diff it.
Try it.
They're going to give me. Using the database to generate UID, so blah, 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 blah. Problem feature was deprecated. Not supported. Blah, blah. Okay.
So see,
that is no longer supported. Okay. So that is going to cause us some problems. However, we can add a column of your UID and then route through that for the resource, right? But there's got to be a way, right? I mean, it's doctrine set ID as UID.
For the time being, consumers are encouraged to
custom.
migrate to Ramsey.
You want to set it to custom. I want to set that to custom ID generator. Let's see if this works. ORM. Okay, I can use that. And the class that we're going to use is UUID.
Isn't it UUID v4?
UUID v. No, it's not working. Okay, so I mean, I prefer ULIDs. What did we put in the spec? UUID. Perfect. Damn it, Jim. To-do. I mean, this is back from a while ago, right? There's got to be a newer way to do it.
So the suggestion that I saw was to use the Ramsey UUID.
UID doctrine, this thing. Do I need? Is it something that I'm pretty sure that gets installed by default? UID generator. Let's have a look. UID generator.
Well, again, that looks like it's using a UUID to me.
Yeah, strategy. Let me just double check. Column type UID. Column type. Jesus. Okay. There's not a lot you can do with that. Generated value, pass through the strategy. Custom ID generator, you pass through the class. Column, you can pass through all sorts of random stuff. Oh, enum types. Useful for later, maybe. Okay, I'm going to leave that as that. And let's try that again. Okay.
Did you forget a use statement for another namespace?
Attempted to load class UID factory from namespace. Did you forget to use statement? I don't think so. This is where we start to get into the weeds of Symfony and not being familiar with Doctrine, I guess.
Yeah, but then again, the fact that once we resolve this, we actually have everything means that it's a lot quicker.
Yeah. I mean, once we get over this this first part, we should be okay. Okay, so let's use this. We're going to use Ramsey's package. See what we can do. So make composer require that. Blah 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 blah. Do I want to? Sure.
Do you want to install the thing you want to install? Yes.
It still fails. What do I need to do? Blah, blah, blah. Configuration. You set this up in your bootstrap. Okay, so where is the bootstrap? That is the question. Here is the question. So what is this bootstrap we are talking about?
It'll be the Doctrine bootstrap.
Which is bloody where? Yeah, I assume.
That looks suspiciously
if I just copy
bootstrappy.
that in and just say do that there, because that sounds like what you do. Blah, 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 blah. Types UUID in packages Doctrine. We do have packages Doctrine. We don't have any types in there yet, so we can add a new record. Let's drop those down and drop that in. The Zen framework, new. Mapping. We've done the mapping. Now let's test it.
Unrecognized option types under Doctrine.
Oh, I need to put it under debow types. Derp. That'll be Steve's fault. Oh my God. It's still telling me to go away. Oh, wait, no, I haven't updated this. This UUID generator needs to be a different one. That one.
It did something.
It's almost like they know what they're doing. Okay, so let's go check out that migration now. I bet people who use Symfony all the time are just laughing at this, like, look at these Laravel-esque people trying to figure out how to use a real framework. Quiet, you. We'll get there. Right? We'll get there.
Yeah.
Get description. Rich user entity. Hopefully not badly. Jesus.
I mean, it could be worse. We could still be trying to work out how to create this.
Well, I mean, I managed to like do something. That's all I know. Unique index, cool.
Let's have a look at that. So we've got ID, UID is not null. That's right. First name varchar 255 not null. Last name varchar 255 not null. Do you want to scroll over a bit? Email 180.
Yeah.
Okay. I normally do 255. Password seems fine. Country, yeah, we'll do with that. Postcode could be shorter, but no biggie. Phone, fine. Date of birth, fine. Marketing, fine. Roles, fine. Do we want a default value for marketing?
Probably do. How do we add a default? Is it on column? Doesn't look like it.
To the Google.
I wonder.
Or is this one of those things where actually Laravel helps too much?
I think it might be. Oh, my God, it's running. Cancel the stream. I've got no coffee. Okay.
Let's leave it for now and assume that it can be handled elsewhere.
Because if we look at the roles, for example, roles not null, for the entity, it's got a default there. So perhaps we do it like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So your actual object has a default.
Yeah, we're not doing it at the database layer. We're doing it at the code layer, which is different to what we would do in Laravel, but again, not incorrect in any way, shape, or form, right?
This is very close to the way that Cake does it.
Yeah, but nobody uses Cake. Right, next. Sorry.
I mean, you're
not
wrong.
Mean to anybody who uses Cake. I do apologize. It might be correct, but I shouldn't be mean. Okay, so migrations migrate.
Sounds like a reasonable thing to do.
Yep, let's give it a go. Nothing
so what's the prior run migration that you've got? Is that just one where you were playing about?
The default one, I assume.
Ah.
Default one that came with the app. So if I now go to admin, here's admin. Still nothing loading. I come to API. There's no operations defined in the spec. So that will be because this is currently not an API resource. So now let's have a look. Ta-da!
I love
How
that.
nice is that? You figured out your database. Ooh. ORM column, nullable, false, options, default, false. Thank you, Mr. Person in chat. Hi, go. Let's add that. So let's kind of just undo. What am I doing? That. Column. I didn't see nullable. Nullable, false, options, default, false. So does that mean I have to regenerate my migrations?
Yes.
No. Yeah, do that. Then just migrate it. We'll see. Try it and see. I see why Gary Hockin used to say that. It's very much we'll get there. Set default false. Perfect.
Nice. And I like how it's doing the atomic migrations as well.
It is nice.
Because that means if you've made that change and I come onto it in the future, there might be 30 migrations to run, but it becomes very, very clear what each one's doing.
And you're figuring out how to use Hockin. Cool. Close all of those. So now we've got users. Oh. What am I doing? Too many buttons.
You need to add the API spec back to the user.
That's correct. Oh my God. How am I even employed?
No comment.
I'm just having one of those days. I haven't had my meds today. That is my excuse. So cool.
So if we look at that ID, it's generating an example of 0.
It is. Are we doing something? Oh, let me hide that. Sorry.
I don't think we are. I think because this is auto-generating and we've told it a string, but then again, it's not generated a string of 0, has it? No, it's generated an integer. Have a look at Hydra member items.
It's still coming back as integer null. It's got to be something.
So let's have a look at our item. We've got string ID is null. Type is UUID. So I wonder if that's just a...
Oh, okay. So example values might be buggy as we don't generate them inside API Platform. They come from Swagger UI.
Right. Fair enough. Brilliant.
That answers me. Woo. I'm late to the party. What are you trying to do? I am typically a Laravel developer and I'm trying to figure out Symphony and Doctrine. Failing a little bit, but we're getting there. It's a slight change in how we'd usually approach things, but I think it might be for good reasons. Like, the difference between ORM, like Doctrine ORM and Eloquent ORM is, the opposite sides of the ORM spectrum, really. One's active record, one's a data mapper. You can't approach a data mapper like you would an active record pattern. So it's making a lot of sense. Also means that, everything's nicely defined. You can understand it quite easily just by looking at it. You don't have to open up the database. You can look at this and go, okay, so here's the identifier. It's using a custom generated value, which would be a UID. It's a UID. Going to be unique, max length for 255. I mean, you could shorten that, but...
So, where
micro-optimization in my eyes.
Yeah, at the amount of data we're going to be holding, it's not worth worrying about. So with this, let's just for a minute pretend that we don't want to be able to delete users. How would we stop that?
That is a good question. Is there any Symphony soft deletable? soft
I was
relatable
thinking more in
portal.
terms of the actual API route. So we will have
Oh, okay.
certain things that we literally don't want to
You
delete on.
can extend it. I believe you do it something like that. There's a way on the API platform, docs, core API reference maybe, no, core, extending. And there's a way to do it. Can't remember which one it is. Order, performance and cache using DTOs, blah, blah, blah. There is a way to do it. Enough naming. Generation strategies. Identifiers. You work with, thank God there's people in the chat, right?
Yeah. But isn't that exactly what
I bet they're all
development's all
sat there
about?
laughing at look at these Laravel developers. Laravel docs are very good. There's no question about that. It does take you through the journey, but I think what this gives you is a little bit different. So if we look at options, so an array, you can pass those in.
Okay.
So if you want to disable delete, you've got to basically say that the operations are new get URI template users. Let's go have a look at that. Just finding that need a slash ID new post URI template is users. Tell you what, we'll make this a little bit easier on me. I am a Laravel developer after all. Here we go. So we also want a get collection. So new get collection. The URI template is users. Post new patch. My template is that's it. So now if we come over to this, refresh, we no longer have the delete.
Nice. So I suppose if you're working on I suppose if you're working on a bigger scale, you just default to having all of them in the reference and delete the ones you don't want.
Yeah. Okay, so you don't actually have to add the URI template. I'm going to keep it though, because I like to be declarative when I write things. So if I'm overriding anything default, I want to be kind of as specific as possible. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as say I'm going to fill in all of these, but
the ones that are specifically relevant.
Yeah.
So from a style point of view, I would probably default to having the operations declared.
I think I would personally, just out of ease. So that keeps the API resource There's an ORM entity. So now we know that our API is going to work from a kind of just give me all the users. Like we don't have any, but give me users.
I mean, I like the fact that it's also giving you a quite descriptive response by default.
Yeah. Now we can change that. So for example,
the JSON API one is
features, blah 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 blah. Hypermedia, not in there. It's good docs, but kind of find your way around when you're not used to negotiation. That's what I need.
It's that one.
So my internet's blipping again, people. So you can support standard JSON. That was useful. So I can just add that into the config, I believe. So in
just for fun, can we add XML?
No.
But I really want to work with XML.
You don't. You really don't. You're lying to yourself if you say that. Okay, so get users. Application JSON.
Oh, nice.
Ta-da. Nice. I don't know why that's being added to it, but it's not the end of the world. It's not going to kill us. We could look at reducing that later. Like, I'm a big fan of how, personally. So let's add that one quickly. Application HAL plus JSON.
So I don't think I know how. Oh, that one. Yes, I do.
Basically similar. You got links, self items, links, paginated link. It's great for kind of like embedded, discoverable hypermedia stuff.
I think I like that.
And that's a bad idea, but it would work. Okay, just for fun, let's do it. Okay, everyone's going to do something stupid once in their life. So we are going to make.
Don't forget to add it to the doc types.
You don't need it to add it to doc types, I don't believe.
Oh, sweet.
So it does work, but it doesn't give you anything because I've got no
because we haven't got anything.
Which is okay with me. Now, before I forget, I am going to remove that. But it's nice to have those options available. So
what others has it got?
Oh, guys, got loads. JSON, CSV, YAML, HAL, JSON API, GraphQL, and JSON LD.
So we're covering all of the main ones.
Yeah. So we've got JSON LD, JSON HAL, and I will add JSON API as well. It is my usual default. VND plus
VND.OpenAPI plus JSON.
.API plus JSON. You can tell I've got a magic keyboard. There we go. JSON LD I love for the web, but the idea of this API, let's hello API platform. We're going to change this. touch line tech API. So the idea of this is that the API is the main aim of the API is to be consumed by a React Native app, right? So while JSON-LD is fantastic for the web to provide context and rich schema.org data to link it through for displaying and all that magic, for the React Native side, it's not going to be that useful. But I think if there is going to be a website eventually, so having that LD support is going to be massively useful.
And the fact that you get that by default is quite incredible.
Yeah.
You literally just add one line and you've got them all.
Let's have a look at this. Just because, oh, wait, there we go. Got to do that, blah, blah, blah. Got to do this, got to do that. Then you got to go to that, apparently. So, do I have to change anything? Or can I literally just do that?
You may need to reserve if it's opening a new port.
That might be correct. Make stop. Make start. Make files for the win. GraphQL Playground. We got one. GraphQL. Wow. So, what we got? What's this do? Let's start pressing button. What did I press? No. Which one am I on? This one. I didn't want that. This is what happens when Steve presses buttons. All right, okay, let's just... Oh, got a redoc. Oh, that's nicer.
Oh.
That is so much nicer. Redocly is awesome. Okay, so get users. Go there, copy that. Blah, blah. Oh, this is nice. See why people use Redocly.
Yeah.
Definitely see why people use it. Just beautiful. Look at it. Look at it. Okay, so I think we spent enough time looking at docs. What's next? Let's go back to our OpenAPI. We've enabled probably more than what I expected to. OpenAPI. So we've just done user. We want to create a player next. So
yeah. I mean, if we go through and we create those entities, in theory, we have the entire API.
Pretty much. Wait a minute. Can I view mode, move to that will help. Make entity player. It's a new one. So we've got a first name, Spring, yep, all done. Last name, yep, default's good. What number?
So is that their shirt number in effect?
Yeah, this is where we need, well, other types. You can pass the UID in there. Do relations. We want a integer. Not null. Position, default, cool. Home, profile, image, URL.
With that one, we're going to need that field length to be longer. Some of the ones that get produced are very long.
We'll look at what we can do for that. Worst case, we create a text column.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm pretty sure there is, text. So if we just do a text now, that, and we can
copy the example over.
Yeah, basically. Here's again another text. This has got a relation that we haven't created yet, so we're going to have to come back to that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a nullable relation, so we'll figure that out. Right, available Boolean. Right, damn it. Available Boolean, and we're going to leave it at that. And let's go look at the player now. So source, entity, player. What did I break? Boolean, text. We're going to swap that for text and that for text. We're going to open up that user entity so I don't have to kind of copy everything across. ID, first name, last name, squad number, position, lots of image URLs, and whether it's available or not. Then this can basically be there. So that works.
API resource.
Okay, so how do I like Doctrine compared to Allen? I like Doctrine. It's going to take me a bit of getting used to. Don't get me wrong. I think I will get on with it quite nicely. I believe we can like ORM table. What are we doing that one? Name. So I'm going to override the default naming convention to what I'm kind of familiar with, just because. Let's just move that to the left bottom. Oh, no. I don't even know what it's doing anymore. What have I done? I've moved it too many times. Move to... Oh, I've got a meeting in 5 minutes. I might have to delay that. So, make console... Let's look at a diff.
Your do not disturb just turned off, mate.
Yeah, it's all right. Migrate it and see what happens. Now I have a player.
It looks suspiciously player-like.
It does. Do not disturb for another hour. I'm not going to be another hour, but you can name it first name. Oh, that is useful. Okay, so I'm going to go back and do that. And I'm going to do it the kind of cheeky way of... What happens if I just delete those? Like, does anything happen?
It'll just regenerate them.
I'm assuming
it won't know what you've done.
Right?
You may need to clear your database afterwards because it won't understand the prior migrations.
First name. Last name. Quad number. I'll worry about changing these a little bit. Okay, so column. And then you can add name. Quad. But I do like that I can do that.
Yeah.
It means that I can write PHP like PHP and database like database. It's good. Couple setters and getters. That is definitely something that I would happily do. So I can do all of those. Make these public. I feel like people are helping me learn doctrine here. Like, come on, Steve. It's time you picked up doctrine. Because before Eloquent, I was using Slim. So there's first name. There's last name. Nothing else needed there. That's all good. So now I can just drop that. I'm going to keep the user identifier, the roles. Remove that. Keep the erase credentials for now. Name, first name. Remove all the other getters. A little bit of tidy up. I need to add some PHP styling rules, I think. Get it to the Steve way that I like to write code. That's all that. That is going to complain about get password. So I'm just going to add that back in. That's all good. Delete that. Ooh, last name column is first name, apparently. Good catch. I love it when people are watching and they tell me where I'm going wrong because I don't know what I'm doing. Right. Okay. So I'm going to keep those as that because we're going to look at how we're going to manage that later. Okay, so now pop that down there. No, so make console. What can I do? I think there's a config clear or cache clear, cache pools, lots of calls. Ooh, warm up empty cache, nice. Clear collection registry. Fixtures load. I'm just going to test some migrations again. Make console do that. Great. It regenerated some stuff. Fine. As long as it works.
And it did.
Pop that to now. This would give me first name. Merge nicer. Fantoothstick. Okay, so I think I've figured out mostly what I need to do with this now. I believe I need to add. Oh, I've already done that. Cool. So there's a player. We need to look at a sponsor. So there's a club, team, fixture, event. player user. Okay. I don't think he created a sponsor object. That is potentially sponsor, add sponsor. Add sponsor. Yeah, he hasn't finished that bit, so we'll have to come back. And instead, we'll focus on club, for example. So make console, make entity. It's going to be a club. Yes, it's going to be that new property. So we want a name. Text, yes. Cool. Description. I'm assuming description of a club wants to be longer than 255 characters.
I would have thought so.
Add URL.
Because what I normally do with things like descriptions is at client side, I'll create a summary. So it'll show the first X characters.
We'll do that. Stated teams.
So what's that for?
I'm not sure. This is where you're useless and I need Jim, right? I needed the Jim. We'll just follow his spec for now and we can fine tune, right?
Of course, yeah. And those micro migrations will make all the difference for that as well.
Exactly. And we're done. Okay, so now let's go look at that club. Let's go see what's going on with the club. We're going to want to copy across all of that magic.
I wonder if there's a way, like you can with Laravel, of having stubs that pre-generate.
That would be really useful. Definitely. Name, description.
Give it a couple of minutes and somebody in chat will probably know the answer.
Yeah, that is very likely. Add URL, country, status. I'm going to leave that as it is because I'm not really sure what he wants with that yet. Drop that. Drop all of these getters. Yeah, I'm going to leave that as is because I'm not really sure what he wants to do there. ORM entity and the ORM table. Oops. Okay. We've got a good amount. I need to migrate, don't I?
Yeah.
So make console, doctrine, diff. Yeah. Migrate. Player and user.
So in that we've got create, list, update and delete, as well as a single get for every one of them. Obviously we've removed the delete from user whilst we were playing about. So that's what, 15 routes? in an hour and a half, and a big chunk of that was spent working out how to do the UIDs.
Yeah. I mean, now I know how to do the UIDs. It's a lot easier to do, right? But
yeah,
it took me some time there. I won't lie. And it's not versioned because I don't think you need to version APIs nowadays. In fact, there's a nice bit in the docs about versioning.
I saw something about deprecating a root as well.
Deprecating resources and properties, alternative to version. Now, I prefer that. Like, create a book instead, and it will give you that, you know, do this, you idiot, do this instead. Using rating property instead. I like that. JSON LD Hydra, OWL depreciation annotation, Swagger OpenAPI, and GraphiqL is depreciated and depreciated reasons. So it just, you add that one property and it goes bang. Setting the sunset HTTP header, perfect. Depreciation reason with a sunset date. It's like this has been designed really well to match the HTTP RFCs specifics around HTTP instead of trying to build, trying to bend your framework to work with that HTTP spec. This is built around that HTTP spec, so it's just everything's there, and I bloody love it. Okay, so that is like the basic stuff needed. What I found really useful is stuff like this: CQRS and event and async messaging processing.
Yeah.
Like we know we're going to need that, right? There's like zero question.
We're definitely going to need to do something async like that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's going to be pulling from the front end all the time.
Yeah. So messenger true. Output false, status. I like that. I wonder if that will be the default behavior on. So if we come up to here and say true, the output to be false, and what was it? The status. So I need to sort those arguments quick, but there we go. That now asynchronously does it, apparently. Wow.
So you post it, and when it's done it sends it back to you through the messenger.
Yeah. So what you then need to do is you need to create a handler. So if I come to API source, there's probably a way to generate this, but I'm going to do it where it says it here. So that was for a user, right? So I need a user handler. This implements message handler interface. That looks like it's depreciated. User as message handler attribute instead. Cool. And we're going to invoke. So public function invoke user do something with it. So by default, the handler will process your message synchronously. If you want it to be consumed asynchronously, configure a transport and the consumer. Creating a message in a handler. As message handler. Dispatching the message. That's handled by default. Async and queued messages. So it supports multiple transports by default. Routing messages. Configured thing. That'll be done by default.
I mean, the fact that all of this is pretty much baked in is very impressive.
It really is. Like, I need to figure out, okay, so supports multiple transports. So we can use AMPQ using RabbitMQ. Doctrine transport, useful. Beanstalk, Redis, in memory, SQS, serializer message. So it looks like it's got a lot of support for kind of asynchronous kind of message distribution, which is great. For now, I'm just going to leave it as is. I think you need to add the repository for the user there in the constructor. So maybe I'll like add that. That may be right back at the top. Like, I saw something about it. Here we go, user repository. So it wants to do it that way. Should be able to make that read only.
And the name wouldn't matter, as far as I'm aware.
So I'm assuming then I can say this user repository.
Find ID.
ID is user ID. Then, okay, there's something that you can do there. I'll play around with that once I figure it out. I can do the as message handler, that's fine. Bus from transport handles method type, cool. Can make things certain priorities on class basis, which is cool. Ooh. Oh, the entity is already managed, so I don't even need this part, apparently, according to Kevin. It's always useful when the creator of the framework joins you, right? Because it's just like, oh my God, what am I doing? Oh, right. Okay, cool. Even easier. So do nothing because yeah, never look through my code. You'll probably be blamed for all sorts of stuff. So also apparently by default, the DBMS is Postgres, which is what API Platform uses by default. It will use Postgres, listen, notify, to dispatch the messages. So I don't even need to do anything, just connect and go.
That's pretty awesome.
Oh, why is this so easy? You're trying to just...
We need Kevin to make it more complicated for us. That's what we're used to.
Internet dipped again, didn't it?
Well, I mean, that is quite impressive, really, how far we've got. We've lost your voice, Steve.
Yeah, so I think my kids are playing Roblox, so they're probably eating all the bandwidth. Damn children. All right, so patch, we kind of want that to use a messenger eventually. But I'll refactor that later once I've figured out a few more kind of specifics. But I can create another handler for a player. So like a player handler. That's message handler.
You've got a capital L there, mate.
Yeah. So quick function invoke that and accept the player as a player. Still do nothing. I am blaming. Perfect. Sorry, Kev. You're going to be everywhere now. Absolutely everywhere. So, operations. We want a new get collection, new post, new patch, and we do want to be able to delete these. URI template is going to be players ID. That is going to be similar here, here, and here. And this will just be players.
Your post will be just players as well.
Yep, it will. So the status for that will be a 202. Messenger will be true. And the output is null. I have to sort that. I'll automatically just map and do magic. And like, I've been building APIs using Laravel for like 6-7 years, however long it's been, and I've been doing it the long way around. Why? Why? Oh, it's just been so... Like, I've spent so long defining how to build APIs well in Laravel. Like, I've made a name for myself by being picky about it, saying this is how you should build APIs in Laravel. There's no excuse. And I've been trying to get as close to what API Platform does out of the box, basically, right? So the team at API Platform, thank you for making the last 6 years of my life irrelevant. There's no other way to put it, right? Let's make that final. There's some script types because we like writing nice code.
Can you make that final without breaking anything?
Oh. Let's see why not.
I'm just thinking
it's not extended, it's utilized. So the way I see it is it should be fine. It's already final. It's already final. Club repository. Yeah, not too fussed about that. Let's just make that declare script types. I'm going to go through and set up like some PHP-CS fixer rules at some point. But I think for now, I'm going to call it a day on that and go, again, just like I did after the last stream, go sit in a dark corner because it just damn works. Like I can make fixtures. That could maybe be like the next thing I look at because it isn't done by default. So, you know.
But would you want fixtures done by default? Because fixtures are something that's used to seed initial data.
Yes. So so before I go, I will go through that. Let's go to here and say story. Right, long link. Creating some stories. So testing the API basically. So
okay. So test fixtures.
You need the ORM fixtures. I can't remember. Yeah, I believe I've already done this. Then you make a factory. Yeah, sorry, my internet keeps booping.
Looks like we've well and truly lost you this time, Steve.
I have no idea what happened there. Yeah, my the internet. So I'm gonna call it a day there and just go and sit in the dark corner and enjoy the fact that API platform makes my life so much easier. Again, thank you for joining me. This has been exciting, educational, and fun. I will see you next time. Goodbye.